Everyone is hyper focused on what's going on, and it's like a grand way to forget about whatever it is that's like bringing you down.
Yeah, there's nothing better than being on the track, going 10 tenths, like racing like your friends next to you and your other friends next to you, you're going through right into a corner. Like it's peaceful in a way, right?
Yeah, yeah, there's this weird piece to it that like you access by going fast. Go figure. But it's beautiful. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for being on the next great car era. Today we have Tyler Joy, Jimmy Underhill, and Nick Chimento. Did I get that right, guys?
Yep.
Yep.
We're off to a good start then. And the three of you guys run a EV Datsun as a race truck. Um, and we have a lot to talk about, but before we get too deep into it, I'm curious, right off the bat, like what is it like driving an electric race truck? Like the emotion, right? You're going around, but it's inherently different than a gas car. Like, can you capture that just briefly so that we can kind of get into the headspace of what it's like to be doing what you guys are doing?
Nick or Jimmy, because I haven't actually driven it much. So
Yeah, I mean it's a blast. Like it's inherently, a similar feeling. You're on a track, but a lot of the um, you know, senses are different, right? You don't get the gas smell, you don't have the heat from the exhaust coming off. It's this much more calm experience. But then you also still have the craziness on track and the rattles of the truck and the tires squealing. So yeah, it's interesting because you're missing a lot of the vibration and noise, and so you pick up on a lot of the other more kind of interesting parts of how the car feels when you're on the track.
Yeah, it's definitely quiet. You hear all the other cars going by or up in the distance, but the truck itself is you hear all the squeaks and stuff, and you can hear the tires kind of singing to you. And um, yeah, I'd say it's relaxing and kind of like a video game because you don't have to shift. You just gas or brake.
Right.
The tires singing to you. I like the way that you put that. And is that song helpful when you're trying to beat a time or stay out as long as you can?
Yeah, you could tell how much the tires are loaded up. You can kind of hear before they let go when you're at the edge.
You're gonna have to tell me what that sounds like one of these days when I get fast enough. I need to know
Okay.
so that I can go, oh crap. All right. Well, thank you for that. Now, let's take it back a little bit more to Arc Blast. Did you as a group did you form the team first or did the truck come first?
uh bit of a wild story anyway about it. Like the truck was a separate thing for a different reason. Lemons was a separate thing for yet another reason. Like, and it all just kind of came together in 2020 where the Datsun needed a new engine. Lemons had this bounty out, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And then we just started doing races and found each other through the converting communities. So, yeah.
It's a great community. I am very excited constantly about the things that are happening in the EV conversion world. Did you guys have backgrounds in cars before this?
Yeah. So I grew up around cars as far back as I can remember. My dad's been into motorsports for a long time. The story goes they had me at the track when I was like 2 months old. And that's the first time I went racing. So,
Little earmuffs.
yep. But yeah, I raced quarter midgets, mini sprints, did some road course stuff. Uh, that's my background. Jimmy and Nick have some very interesting backgrounds too. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
raced in Spec Miata for a couple years and was able to race in SCCA Pro for the Volkswagen Jetta TDI Cup and just always been into screwing with my cars, tinkering. Um, and nowadays I do autocross and now the Lemons.
Yeah, and on my side, I was born in Florida, and my dad took me to the Daytona 500 when I was probably 5 or 6, and fell in love with
Whoa.
cars there. And it was always like, you asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I would always say race car driver. But it was always kind of a one of those fake answers that you never actually get to realize. And then back in college, Tyler uh, was building a car for Lemons and Chump Car. It was his old Camaro. He's like, "Hey, I need some help building the car, and you should jump in and drive it." And so that was kind of how I got pulled into racing. And since then, I've done some track stuff, a lot of autocross, and yeah, it's been a blast.
I love it. I have been doing a little bit of racing myself, just in like HPDE type of things. But one thing that always just stuns me is how focused you become when you're on the track, and or even a part of the race day. You're there, there's the energy, like everyone is hyper focused on what's going on, and it's like a grand way to forget about whatever it is that's like bringing you down. You don't, there's no more room in your mind to other than being right there right now. And I really love that about cars and racing.
Yeah, there's nothing better than being on the track, going 10 tenths, like racing like your friends next to you and your other friends next to you, going through right into a corner. Like it's peaceful in a way, right?
Yeah, there's this weird piece to it that like you access by going fast. Go figure. But it's beautiful. So Tyler, you said there was a funny story with getting the truck, and for those that are looking at the screen right now, that is the truck right behind you with the big
Yep.
9 on it.
Yep. Looks a lot different than it did 5 years ago, but
So take us through this crazy story a little bit.
yeah.
When you
So
got it.
back in late 2019, Nick and I were both living in California. I was actually going through a little bit of burnout at work and needed a little break. And being a roadkill fan, decided to go up to Oregon, buy this Datsun 620, and drive it back. Sight unseen. Apparently had a rebuilt engine. The diff was welded, like it was just a piece of junk. Went picked it up, went to Harbor Freight, bought a bunch of tools, got on the highway. Got about halfway back, and the engine seized.
Oh no.
Yep. Um, so yeah, that was an adventure to say the least. Ended up getting it towed all the way back to Cal or to San Jose, and tried to put a new engine in it. Had a whole bunch of problems. Uh, Ended up not getting it running until I moved back to Colorado. That engine blew up. Replaced that engine, and then the third engine started to go. And at that point, I gave up on ICE for this thing. So,
So
yeah,
when that was happening, what was the moment that you realized this trip is not going according to plan?
uh, halfway back when the engine seized at 60 miles an hour in front of a semi.
In front of a semi.
Oh, that was yeah. I remember the engine started like I was like full throttle, didn't get anything out of it, and then you just seized. So I just slammed the clutch and I had to just veer off the highway quickly because we were about to get just slammed by a semi.
Is
Yep.
that the moment you questioned your life choices a little bit?
I would like to say so, but that's not the first time sketchy things have happened.
Mm.
That was
It's a moment of peace, right?
a normal silly weekend adventure for Tyler and I.
Yep. But yeah, that truck was never intended to be a race car. It's supposed to be a parts runner. Actually, I can share it. At the time, we are doing something called Power Wheels Racing Series,
Okay.
which is little electric go-karts.
So the idea of the series, which is kind of similar to 24 Hour of Lemons, is you get $500 to get a kid's toy and upgrade it with whatever electric motor and bits that you can find, and go and race and do like a multi-hour race in these little kids' toys.
Whoa. That's interesting.
It's a series run at maker fairs across the country.
And some speed records too, I see, at the Bonneville Salt Flats.
We we drove, what was it, 36 hours straight from San Jose to Kansas City one time to go do a race, and on the way back, Bonneville's on the way, so of course we have to stop.
I don't want to
Yeah.
sidetrack us too far here, but like what sort of upgrades do you do to one of those small kids cars to make it able to compete in a several hour race?
So the way the rules are set up, you're limited to 1.4 kilowatts of power.
Okay.
They don't really care how much battery you have, but most people will swap batteries. Uh, I mean, it's low enough power you can get like an e-bike drivetrain or something off of like Alibaba or something.
I think we ended up settling on a big RC boat motor
Uh-huh.
and a angle grinder gearbox.
Amazing. Could you make like a hybrid system by adding pedals?
I'm sure you
Sure you
could.
could, yeah.
Okay, maybe that's for next year.
You see the cogs in all of our heads turning. I'm like, how can we do that?
I mean, a small battery in a small car, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were racing those, and then you got the pickup truck.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was about this time that the 24-hour limits put out this EV bounty. Do you want to explain that, Tyler?
Yeah, I think it was 20. Ooh, I have it written down here. I think it was early 2019. They put out a bounty for the first electric vehicle to win outright. Uh, so that, like, against all the gas-powered cars, Class A win. And the reward was a dump truck full of nickels, which is 50K. Um, but yeah, it's very much a joke, right?
Yeah.
But Jim, the organizer, the owner of Lemons, really wanted to see EV, so he put that out there to try and encourage people.
So, inquiring minds, I think some people have heard of Le Mans, but maybe some people have not heard of lemons. So, do you guys want to demystify that for us?
You want to take that one, Nick?
Yeah, so 24-hour limits, it's a series, and the whole idea is trying to do more with less, right? So the idea is you take terrible old cars and try to get them to last a 24-hour endurance race on a track. So it's about trying to find the kind of cheapest, oldest, weirdest car that really shouldn't be racing, and make it race and last a full 24-hour race. So it's a really cool series. It's about kind of innovating and trying to just make something work without spending a lot of money on it.
I like that idea because it also makes it a little bit more accessible for people to get into racing. Because you see at higher levels when every tire is $1,000, then it's harder to get in. But now, did you guys have any experience with lemons before this point?
Yeah, I raced with a group of friends in an Audi once. I think that was 2011. Nick and I did a chump car, which isn't the same thing as Lemons, but we were trying to get the Chimento Lemons before I met its demise. So,
Oh, no. Well then I guess to try and continue to paint this picture here, what is the weirdest or funkiest car that you guys have seen competing at Lemons so far?
oh man, that's a very long list. Potential
Very
cars.
long list.
I mean,
Volvo station wagons,
yeah,
Volvo
minivans,
station wagons.
PT Cruisers.
there was a
Lots of
panel
PT
van.
cruisers.
Yeah,
Because you have,
I mean,
what did you say, $500 budget?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
$500 for performance parts, but they do something called BS Tech. If you go over $500, they just give you penalty laps. So you really could show
Oh.
up with anything if you wanted to.
You just might start 100 laps down, negative 100 laps. You might be turning laps for a few hours just to get back to zero.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and like you're saying, the whole point is it's racing for anyone. Like you can show up, go get some laps, have a good time. It's mostly about the community.
Do you have a good like lemons moment, maybe in the early days when you guys were just getting into it, that a funny story you could recount?
Well, when we were racing the Camaro, um, it was a 1988 Camaro automatic V6, drum brakes on the rear, I think, still. Terrible, terrible car. But, we were in college and it was whatever we could get on track, right? And we were just kind of, chugging along the whole race, and we were getting near the end and maybe started pushing a little bit too much. And I think it was our third driver who came in with the brakes on fire because we just totally cooked the brakes. But there
Oh
was
my
only like
gosh.
an hour left in the race, and we're like, can we get this thing fixed up and get it back on track? So then Tyler, he wanted to finish the race.
Yeah, we were in 11th place, and I really wanted top 10. So I just went back out with the e-brake and just sent it.
Did you
We
make
got,
it?
oh, yeah, we got there. Last
Yes.
lap, we passed for 10th.
Nice. Okay, so that gave you guys a little bit of understanding about what lemons was, and then you guys mentioned that that the owner of Lemons had an EV bounty that they released. What did it take some convincing? Did you guys see that and you're like, yes, we're going for it, or did you have to sit on it and mull it around a little bit?
I think I had 20, 30 crazy, wild ideas about how we do this. And mind you, this is when we were in San Jose. At the time, Nick and I we were just roommates living in a trailer home out there. Was no garage, so nowhere to build this thing, no tools, no nothing. So it took a little convincing.
So we
Uh,
would go through it, right? And we'd kind of do the math, like back of the envelope math, and it was like, okay, maybe this is possible. We had built these go-karts, and it's like really all a car is just a bigger go-kart, right? And if we could somehow swap the batteries, maybe we could make it work. And then we'd kind of get into it more and do a bit more math and convince ourselves, nah, there's no way you could possibly be competitive and make it work. And then we looked at it some more, and it's like maybe we can make it work, but probably not. And then one day I got a message from Tyler like, hey, I just bought a ton of batteries. We're doing this thing.
Actually, I think that was a big turning point because the original calculations for how much money and battery we needed, it was going to be the entire truck bed of batteries just to go an hour and a half.
Hmm.
And then like mid 2020, these Jaguar Land Rover cells came up for sale, and it just packaged just perfectly in where the roll cage triangle would be, and it was like perfect. We could afford it. It was enough to go an hour and a half. Didn't weigh over 1,000 pounds. So
That's key.
yep,
So that's when the
yeah,
parts car became a race truck.
yep.
How long did it take you guys to make that conversion, to do the build?
3 years, almost 2.5 years. Because there's almost nothing left of Datsun on this Datsun truck. Like it's Miata stuff, it's Land Rover stuff, it's completely custom pretty much at this point, except for the body. So
And the frame rails,
and the
mostly.
frame.
Do you have the emblem on it still? Or is that an Arc Blast logo now?
It doesn't have the fender, the front bumper grill, so there's no emblems on it at all, right?
I think the truck bed still
Sleeper.
said Datsun. That was about
Yeah,
it.
we did just take that off though for weight. So
Was this the did you think about any other cars for doing this before the Datsun?
yeah, originally I wanted a Honda Insight, but
Oh.
the way the rules are written, you have to have 9 inches clearance from any battery cell to the envelope of the vehicle, and it's, especially being an aluminum body, there's just not really a good way to package batteries unless you're paying a lot of money for some really high energy density batteries. So it just didn't really make sense until we scaled up to a truck, pretty much.
So real quick, I don't want to get lost in the specs, but what does your drivetrain for the truck look like? What parts did you opt to use? You said
Yeah, so
Jag batteries, right?
Yeah, so they're LG Kim battery modules from a Jaguar I-Pace, and we have 14 of those packaged in a custom battery enclosure with cooling and the battery management system within the battery. And that whole battery, there's 3 of them that can come in and out of the truck, and we can explain that system a bit more. And that feeds power into a Hyper 9 HV motor. And we just recently upgraded from the normal Hyper 9 motor to a water-cooled version to try to keep it a little bit cooler.
Ooh.
And then that pairs up with a very short custom drive shaft that's about 12 inches long to a Miata rear diff. and it's just straight driven into the rear differential.
So no transmission at all.
Correct.
Yep. It's all about efficiency for endurance racing. So any weight we could cut out, and obviously we're doing a lot of aero stuff now to get that efficiency and drag down.
Yeah. So batteries, how many kilowatt hours in that pack, in one of the packs?
So we're 36.8, I think, kilowatt hours. We only use about 28 kilowatt hours right now.
That's for battery health, right?
Battery health and charge speed. Trying to go too far in the weeds. We're pretty limited on what power we can get at the tracks. So we need to be able to use as much power as we can and not like trickle charge the last 10%.
Take advantage of the charging curve.
Yep.
And then what are you guys using for the motor controller?
The net gain Hyper 9 controller. I think it's the ACX 144.
Okay. And then the battery management system?
We're using Orion BMS 2. Yeah. And that's
I was just going to say the unique thing with the battery management is we can't just put it in the vehicle because the batteries come in and out of the car. We have to have a battery management system per battery. So it leaves the truck with the battery in the enclosure. And then that also controls the charging when it's in the pits being charged. So we actually have 3 of these BMSs that travel with the 3 batteries.
Oh, that's very cool. It makes sense once you say it, but I don't know if I would have guessed that just being walked through.
Right.
Is there any other kind of interesting challenges you guys had to solve when you were building this truck, getting it ready for its first race?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, I don't think there's one system from suspension to batteries to chargers that wasn't a big challenge. I'd say for the first race especially, our only goal was to pass tech. So we showed up, passed tech, did a few laps, and decided we wanted to charge. So for the first race, the big challenge was building a charger middle of the race.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
But that's good. You actually hit your goal and you exceeded it. That's a win. I like it. Incremental.
Yeah. And, leading up to the first race, we both have full-time jobs. This is sort of a on-the-side hobby. So, of course, you tell yourself, okay, here's the schedule. This is what we want to get done. And you always get way behind. So I think we were about a week out from the first race. There still wasn't a single wire in the whole truck, right? We were still getting the mechanical stuff all sorted out. And so it was definitely a mad scramble at the end. And I think we got the wheels spinning. It was 2 in the morning on the morning of like needing to take it to the track.
Literally, I remember rolling on the trailer about 3:30 a.m., going to bed, getting up at 7, and then going to tech.
Ouch. It's basically the SEMA crunch, right?
Yep.
Well, give us all a little bit of hope. After doing that, if you were to start from step 1 again, would it be easier to build the truck knowing what you know, having done it once? Please say yes.
I'd like to say yes, but we're racers. Like, we probably wouldn't build it in the same way. We'd probably look for more efficiency, more power, more this or that.
That's fair.
It's the curse of the racer, right? Well, the car won't be done until the hour before we go to tech.
But with that said, I mean, I think even from when we started working on this 4 years ago or whatever, there's so much information now in the whole EV swap community. It seems like it's becoming easier and easier and more accessible to figure out how to actually hook up these things. Because when we were starting to do the research, it was so hard to figure out what was going on.
It is changing fast. So let's dig into that first race day just a little bit more. One thing I want to underline in case it was missed, you guys mentioned this is an endurance race. That's a little bit different than kind of get in first. Can you talk a little bit more about how that differs and how that translates to your goal as a EV racers?
Yeah, so endurance racing, it's not about lap times, it's about time on track, right? So however long your race is, for us, it's usually 24 hours. It's how many laps can you do before you have to change a battery? How many laps can you do before the checkers? Which just comes down to efficiency, right? So you're just trying real hard not to do that extra 20 seconds a lap faster. so you can stay on the track for another 2 laps, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so with the goal being to get the furthest distance over that 24 hours, often driving 10/10ths isn't the right thing to do, and especially not in an EV. So we're going up against primarily ICE cars. They have to stop just whenever they're out of fuel. So they run a full fuel tank, and so our goal is to kind of stretch the battery to last as long as we possibly can. So we're not doing significantly more stops than the gas cars.
Do you have it all like mapped out Excel sheet magic to try and like keep track of all of it?
Yeah, there's pages and pages of sheets for this, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think Tyler actually has every single lap that we've turned in its own entry, if I'm right.
Maybe.
Man, that is a gold mine of data.
Right, and
Where what?
that's the thing with the gas car, you can kind of just show up and run, and as long as you fill up fuel and fill up your fuel jugs and take them out to the pits and fill up the car, it's pretty easy logistically. But with the EV, there's a lot more moving parts because we have to figure out the time on track for the batteries, figure out how long it takes to charge them, move and push the batteries back and forth between the pits and the chargers, and get the temperatures all right for the batteries. So there's a lot more logistics that it
Yeah.
takes to get the car on track.
I'd say for us, like the most difficult part is logistics. Our race isn't just on track, it's in the pits.
Hmm.
Yeah, because if you get behind on charging, if something goes wrong with the charger, you forget to turn it on, it turns itself off and you don't check it, you lose the whole race. You'd just be sitting for an hour if you don't have any power or whatever. So and that's where growing the team and getting Jimmy on board and getting more and more help has been so instrumental for us actually being able to become more competitive.
That makes good sense. You guys got a fan over here. I'm hoping to see you actually at a race later this year, but we'll get to that. Let's go back in time to this first race. Remind me where is it? Where was it? And what was the year? Was it 2023?
Yeah, this was 2023. I think it was September, if I remember correctly.
Yep. At High
Uh,
Plains Raceway, which is our track here in Colorado. It's just east of Denver, kind of in the middle of nowhere.
All
yes.
racetracks seem to be.
Yeah.
So when you made it through that inspection, the initial tech, how did you feel? Were you expecting to pass it or just hoping?
Personally, I didn't think we were going to pass. Like this was so new. Not even like the Lemons Tech weren't really sure about it. They had a fly in an expert essentially to give us the go no go.
Did you make friends with that expert now? Small world,
Yeah,
right?
we're friends with them now.
But that said,
Uh,
Tyler was in close contact with the Lemons safety and tech guys for I think a couple years leading up to the race. So, we had checked in on a lot of the things we did, and we were working with them to try to figure out what is the safest way to run this car. So there was a lot of groundwork into trying to be able to show up and pass. But it was still, yeah, a big relief once they checked off and were happy with all the things we did.
yeah,
I
I
think
thought for
that's
sure we'd be building that car well into Saturday morning to get it to pass tech.
I think you guys are doing a great service as ambassadors for EVs. There's a lot of misinformation about EV race cars, and I see more and more tracks that are taking a precautionary principle because no one there knows anything about EVs, and their rationale for not allowing them is not based in kind of the latest and greatest science, but but no one knows. And so then they kind of have to just take a step back. So I think the way you guys are approaching it from education and working with the tracks and the event organizers is really awesome.
Yeah, I will say we lucked out being at High Plains. Glenn and all of his crew and all the safety workers out there are amazing. Like they help keep everyone safe, right? Like they're willing to work with us to make sure we don't start a fire and we're not, they're just great.
That's what good racing's about. So I do have a question about endurance racing though. So how do you guys stay awake and sane over 24 hours? And in this case, you're even debugging your system, but like, take me through a little bit. Like, what does that look like for the team?
Usually we take it in stints.
Okay.
So uh, that first 24-hour race we did, I think I stayed up 14 hours and then handed off to my dad to do crew chiefing, and I went and slept. I think we had 5 drivers, so we swapped out drivers in the middle of the night. 2 people would sleep, 2 would come back, and just carried on like that. But it's a challenge, right? Like you're just trying to stay awake enough to not crash, and then on top of that, we're trying to stay awake enough in the pits to swap a 500-pound battery every hour. So it's rough.
How long did it take you guys to perfect that battery swap? What does that look like?
I'd say we haven't perfected it,
Okay.
but it
You're
took
racers though, so it's never perfected.
I don't know. I think the first battery swap we did at a race took us like 10 minutes because we were just so nervous.
I think it was maybe 15. But yeah, we've slowly, I think all figured out the choreography a little bit, the steps. We've optimized some of the bits, and last year we were able to get it down. What, Jimmy? It was like about 2 minutes.
Yeah, I want to say probably 2 minutes or under for the battery swap, and then we change the driver out at the same time. And I think the battery swap is probably it's the most unique part, and it's probably the most functional part of the truck. Like without the battery swap, it's just not doable. And the battery swap we have is really good. I think we might be able to get a little bit faster, but I don't think anybody else will get faster than us.
So where did you land in the rankings on that first race with the 15-minute battery swap?
So the very
No.
first race, the one in 2023, that
Yeah.
one we didn't have battery swapping at all.
Oh,
Like
you
Tyler said,
didn't?
we showed up, we didn't even have a charger, right? We passed tech, we ran a couple laps, the battery died, and that was pretty much our race. And then we did decide to stay up all night, build a charger, charge it at like 2 a.m. till 7 a.m. and go do a few more laps at the end of the race and take the checkered flag. So we must have finished very, very near the back of the field. I think we did like, less than 30 laps. But
Okay.
then going forward to 2024, last year we did 2 races, and that's where we got the battery swap going and made a lot more progress, and did better.
I didn't realize that. So the
Yeah.
battery swap wasn't part of the initial vision for this, but that was an
Well,
innovation.
It was planned but not implemented for the first race.
Yeah.
So then that kind of brings us to the second race that you were just talking about. Other than being able to implement the battery swap, were there any other major changes to the truck that you had made leading into that race?
I mean, finishing up the battery swap system, which it's like on rollers and some weird things. But the big one was making chargers that weren't sketchy and were highly functional.
No
So-
bubble gum.
Yeah. The first race, like the charger we made didn't have like exposed high voltage or anything, but it did have wires that were out, and it wasn't great. It was just a test article, right? The second race, actually, I should preface all this by saying we're running 144 volts nominal, which means you can't just roll up to a level 2 charger and use it. We have to use onboard, like what you'd see on a Nissan Leaf or something, how it takes 240 volt from the wall and then converts that on board to DC to charge a battery. We have 8 of those per charger running in parallel. So this is a very unique charging setup as well.
Yeah. So the chargers, we built 2 chargers. So since we have 3 batteries, we can have the 2 that aren't in the truck charging the whole time. Each charger has 2 50 amp, 240 volt inputs. So we hook up basically to the 2 RV hookups. And then, like Tyler said, we have 8 onboard chargers in parallel that convert from the 240 AC to our DC voltage. And then they're all hooked up to DC charge the batteries.
And are you able to fully charge the battery pack in an hour and a half?
Well, we
Yeah,
can
I
get
think-
from about 20 to 80%.
About 20 to 80.
Yeah. And that's actually closer to, I think, 40 or 50 minutes because we need time to move the batteries around and cool them down before going in the truck.
Oh, you're pre-cooling the batteries.
Yeah,
So,
because your batteries run pretty close to ambient temperatures, especially if it's like 105 degrees outside.
Yeah.
So thermally, ideally, we're putting them in the truck cold or as cold as they can be without derating. Then over that hour and a half stint, they'll heat up to just under what we're comfortable with.
And that was something we learned in the first race. They definitely heat up quite a bit as we charged them out of the truck, and we didn't want to put them back in the truck so warm because then we just don't have that thermal overhead to run them hard in the truck. So we basically hooked up some garden hose and an extra pump to run water through them while they were charging in the pits. And we just put some ice in an ice chest, garden hose, ran it, and just try to keep the water cold. And we, went into the track, bought a bag of ice, went to the track, bought another bag of ice. I think we went through over 200 pounds of ice over the race while we were charging the batteries.
So you just described a garden hose, a cooler, and ice. Was this a MacGyver moment to charge the batteries, or was this well thought out?
100% MacGyver.
That said, we did run the exact same system the second race last year. So,
you struck gold there. Going into the second race after having done the first one, were you guys a little bit more confident, or was it just more like complicated because you now had more plates spinning and more variables to control?
Way more complicated. That second race was the first full 24-hour race that we did. And I think we had 20 people there in total. So just a lot of logistics, moving people around, who's watching the chargers, who's moving the battery. Like just knowing when a driver is going to come in, we didn't have any way to measure our state of charge. The state of charge feedback was, will it climb the hill before pit entry? And if it doesn't, pull in so we can swap the battery.
That's a big support team. 20 people.
Yep. Yeah. For 24 hours, right? You figure 20 people, 10 people working half the race, 10 working the other. It's a big thing, unfortunately. So,
but it's just you three driving, right? There's only a few drivers that rotate out.
For the long races, we try to get 4 to 6 drivers. So there's more of us.
Do you guys practice beforehand with all the other drivers? Do you have an opportunity, or do you just kind of have to describe it to them?
If we can, we put people on the track, but I try to make sure we always practice a battery swap. That's one of the safety critical times, right? The car has to be off. You don't want to drop a battery pack on someone's feet. And we're not allowed steel toes or safety shoes on pit lane because it's all set up for ICE vehicles and they're worried about fire. So working around that, like, it's pretty interesting as well.
Connect the dots for me. Steel toes, are they worried about like sparking if you kick a rock with, like, what is the concern there?
So my understanding it's not so much about no steel toes, it's about fire rated shoes.
Oh.
Yeah. And maybe so the rule for lemons is that anyone who goes over the wall onto the pit lane to service the car and refuel has to be in full, safety rated driver gear. So helmet, gloves, suit, boots, and everything. Yeah. And so there are none of the SFI rated boots that are also steel toes, because who needs safety steel toes for racing, right?
Right.
Except for us.
Were there any other issues you guys encountered on that second race that you had to think through at the speed of now?
So the second race is when we built out the next 2 batteries. And unfortunately, they did not come in balanced. So the day before we raced, I had to run to O'Reilly's. I bought these 2 rock lights. We wired them across one module to drain it down to match the other cells. And that took like 3 or 4 hours.
Oh.
Yep. Because the Orion BMS can do the balancing, but it's really slow. Like we would have finished the whole race before that pack was balanced. So
at one level deeper, explain to folks what balancing means. It's not all of my cells shifted over to one side of the box.
Yep. Yeah. So in a battery pack, you want all your cells to be the same voltage level. So if you're running lithium ion that's 3.2 to 4.2 volts, If you have one cell at 3.2 and another cell at 4.2 volts, you can't charge it because then you'll overcharge the 4.2 volt cell and start it on fire. You can't discharge it because then you'll over discharge the 3.2 cell and kill it. So you want everything to be pretty equal so you get the most capacity out of your battery pack.
That makes sense. So the cells that, or I guess in this case, it was the modules that you had a couple modules that were higher. And so you use those lights to drain them down until they matched. And then you could charge the whole pack to where you wanted it.
Yep, that's right.
That's a good solution.
Manual balancing, right?
So you did 24 hours. How did you guys do in that race? How did it end up for you?
Yeah, that race went, again, just blew my expectation out of the water. Because we just wanted to go and get data, right? We didn't expect to be competitive or set a record or anything crazy. The stretch goal for that race was to do 700 miles. And we ended up doing 701.25 miles.
Whoa.
The best part about this is we didn't actually know until we went to the award ceremony. Because when you look at the High Plains website, it says it's a 2.5 mile track. It's actually 2.55 miles.
That extra 0.05 makes a difference.
Yep.
Yeah. Just over 700. Yep.
Yeah, we actually ended up winning the IOE award for that, which was completely unexpected. So pretty big success, I'd say.
And in the IOE award, so this is like the highest honors in 24-hour of lemons. It's the index of effluency. And basically it's the car that goes the furthest distance that really shouldn't have, right? The car that's doing the most with the least.
Like, thanks, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That is was that the record? Was that like a EV record at that point? Or were you still chasing a record?
Yeah, that was the newest record at that time. Forrest with his EV, what does he have? He has a Chevy Bolt. I think he set it around 400 something miles before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then there was an Electrica 3 years before that did about 300 miles.
So you guys just destroyed the record.
Yeah, we almost doubled it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So when you finished that 24 hours of race, you had just done a fantastic job. But what was the next thing you guys did? Before crashing out, did you guys get pizza, coffee, celebrate?
So, Lemon for High Plains, we had to be out of the track by 6, and I think we left the track at like 5:50 because we have a tent, we have chargers, we have batteries. It was just a mad dash to get everything on the truck and out of there. So,
oh man.
And then I think we got home and slept. I don't think there was a whole lot of celebrating that night.
Later on.
Yeah. And then we immediately basically turned around and were like, okay, what do we need to do to get ready for the next race? That was 3 months later at High Plains.
Which is probably not hard to do because you're feeling amped. You're excited, right?
Yeah. And the truck is like very, very low maintenance, right? We, I think, swapped the diff fluid and we were ready to go. Right. Of course, we did some more upgrades and stuff, but there's like almost no regular maintenance that's needed on these EVs.
What about brakes?
now we try to use regen as much as possible because we need that energy. So barely, I don't even think the brakes are really broken in yet at this rate.
That's one of the things I love about EVs is that like a daily driver EV, you can put race pads on it because you never use those pads. So go for it. Squeak away.
Right. We were actually laughing like we might switch away from race pads back to just like some aggressive street pads because they don't heat up enough.
Oh, that's a fair point. Interesting. There's a lot of variables. What about tires? Are you guys chewing through tires or is it kind of soft on tires?
I'd say it's about average on tires. We run harder. Race tires are kind of weird, right? Everyone's running 190, 200 treadwear tires, but I think the manufacturers kind of fudge the numbers up there. We're running some harder tires, so we go about 24 hours on a set if we're easy on them, right? If we put on some like nice, really sticky tire, it'd probably be changing every 10 hours or so.
Okay.
So say we're about average.
Do you guys need to rotate the tires during the 24 hours at all?
I think we did once. Right? Do you remember, Nick?
Um, during so some of the 24-hour limits races are 24 straight, and some are a Saturday plus a Sunday with no nighttime driving. So
Oh,
for the most recent race we did in the truck, which was last September, that was a like 8 hour plus 6 hour race, and I think we might have rotated them overnight, just to swap the fronts and the rears. So this car actually wears the rears a little bit faster than the front because you have the battery sitting more over the back.
interesting. So the third race, was that also at High Plains?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
that's
all Lemons races are not at High Plains though, right?
no Lemons races all across the country. It's just High Plains is the closest track to us, and they have one full 24-hour race a year, which is kind of up our alley. So,
Perfect.
but yeah, race three was great. That's actually when Jimmy joined us after we met him at State of Charge. So,
Yeah, I saw this thing at State of Charge and I like just went up to you guys and I just said, "Do you need more drivers? Because I want to drive this thing."
Man, that was the year I did not go, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that was
But
last year.
last year missed it. But I'll see you guys there this year, so that's good news, and we can
uh,
hang out.
maybe we'll touch on that later.
Oh no. All right, you heard it here first. They're going to be there, but I can't hang out with them. That's all right. That's all right. Let's get back to this third race though. So High Plains Raceway, your goal, are you trying to beat that 700 miles a little bit, or are you still kind of in data mode, gather the data?
Gather
Still
the
in data.
data mode. Yeah, I mean, we were looking at it, right? So this race was a 14-hour race instead of 24-hour race.
Okay.
So you look at it and you're like, all right, so there's really no way we're going to be able to beat our record, but that's okay. So we'll go out, get data. We made some improvements on the batteries. We made some improvements. We added some additional regen on the motor. We improved the cooling system a little bit. So the radiators and the cooling loops for the the motor, the inverter, and the battery. It's three separate cooling loops. So we did some upgrades to the truck. We tried to get a little bit faster the battery swaps, but generally we were just going out to try to get more data. And the first races we did, we didn't have a data logger or anything on the truck, so we actually put a CAN logger on, so we could actually collect some data.
Oh, that's cool. And when you said that you changed the regen, is that you were just working with the existing controller, like changing the settings and literally tuning that motor?
Yeah, and there's a lot of parameters to mess with. So there's a lot of learning that we've done and still need to do to really get that thing dialed in.
Yeah. The big one is there's a balance between the BMS and the motor controller about how low the cell voltages are. Right now, if we're low charge going down the back straight full throttle, the battery will just open the contactors and you'll have no power.
That's not good.
Yeah. So that's a bit of an awkward situation because you have to cycle everything. But we're hopefully going to tune that out, which Jimmy actually found some pretty big issues at that race to help mitigate it. I think the big one was our 12-volt battery post was loose. So
There's
Yeah,
always something.
always the simplest thing. And also we one of our current sensors was backwards, so in the middle of the night, like 11 o'clock or something like that, Nick and I swapped it around. We had to open the battery up and deal with the high voltage there in the pits, and but
Ooh,
we got it done and it worked a lot better the second day.
I guess that's the benefit of having 2 days is you get a little bit of a moment to breathe.
Yeah, there's usually a big party, or there is always a big party that Saturday night in the paddock, or there's a big potluck. Everyone, hangs out, has some drinks, has a good time. And I think, yeah, we were doing high voltage battery surgery.
Was there anything that really blew you away other than like finding those gremlins for the car in its third race?
yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
I was just gonna say by the end of that race, the car was a lot faster than it was before. We had a lot more power. We were kind of getting the suspension dialed in, and we just had way more pace than we had before. So that was something for me, like I was not expecting to have made the gains that we made with what we had done.
Yeah, and I was
yeah,
really surprised at how good it handles. The handling is really good because Tyler can show some pictures, but it's all Miata suspension front and rear. So it's got good balance and good grip, and the handling's probably the best part.
Did you recognize that suspension since you raced in Miata so much, or is it
Oh yeah.
still something different?
Oh yeah, as soon as you put your head under there, it's a Miata.
I love that.
Yeah, so Jimmy helped a lot with getting the suspension more dialed in because we just kind of bolted up the rusty old Miata suspension, and yeah, Jimmy's helped us dial it in for sure.
Anything blow you away, Tyler?
How much aerodynamic drag this thing has. Like I was showing some pictures earlier and we did yarn testing, but after we got back and started crunching the data, this thing was it. I don't know how much you know about coefficient of drag, but we were over 1, which is crazy when you think about a modern car is around 0.3 to 0.4.
Yeah, that's like 3 times as much as a Tesla.
Yeah. And you remember 1 is just a brick. So we are worse than just a brick of the same size.
Is 1 literally, is that the it's a brick? That's
Yep.
the tear for your, oh my God, I love that. Today I learned. Oh,
And the other thing, I think we did really, really dialed into choreography on the battery swaps. And maybe we want to walk through that because I think that is something we, really got pretty dialed in by the end of the race.
let's do that.
So, like I said, for 24-hour lemons, the rules is anyone who goes over the pit wall has to be in full safety gear.
Mhm.
And because it's when you do refueling, you must have one person in full safety gear standing there with a fire extinguisher ready to go, which, of course, for a fueling pit stop with gas is very important
Yeah.
in case fuel splashes on the hot brakes or whatever. So for us, that rule still applies while we are refueling, which is the battery swap process. So it does take us 3 people. We have the driver who is getting out of the car, the driver who is getting into the car, and 1 additional person to do the swap. So 2 people on the battery and 1 person on the fire extinguisher. So this was the end of my stint. So you pull into the pits, undo the belts, get them ready for the next person, undo the radio, undo the steering wheel, hit the kill switch, and hop out of the car. And once the driver is out of the vehicle, you can start the refueling process. So we first lift the whole truck bed. We added a hinge on the back bumper so the bed pivots up and out of the way. And we have our nice prop rod. We undo the electrical connector and the 2 coolant hoses, the inlet and the outlet. We've got coolant dry brake connectors so we don't let air into the cooling system. Then one person will get down and undo the 2 big bolts holding the battery in place. And as those bolts loosen up, the battery pops up on a spring-loaded roller plate so then it can roll smoothly out of the truck. We have just like an impact gun that we undo these bolts with, and that's definitely something that we think we can optimize and get a little bit faster in the future. We roll up a battery cart that's empty, so we welded up these battery carts. We have a retaining hook that we hook onto the truck so they can't roll away, and then we pull the battery out of the truck. So it slides right on out on the roller plates. We move the used empty battery out of the way, and that'll eventually get pushed back into the pits for recharging. And then we roll into place the new fresh charged battery and line it up, release the latch that holds the battery in place, and then slide it right in. And these are, I think, 500 or 600 pound batteries, so they're pretty heavy, but with the rollers, they do slide on without a huge amount of work. And then we basically just do the same steps backwards. So first we put the bolts back in place. Here was near the end of the race, so we had some stuff move a little bit on us, so the alignment wasn't perfect. We had to kind of wiggle the battery there to get the bolts in. We torque down those 2 retaining bolts. And after that's done, we'll reconnect the coolant lines, we'll reconnect the electrical connector, and then drop the bed, and we're off to the races.
Nick, you made that sound so simple. And clearly it is simple for you guys, but wow, there's a lot of steps there. And I really like some of the small details to make it easier, like having the springs that once the bolts are loosened enough, it comes out so that it can roll. It's pretty elegant.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd like to say we were the first thing of that, but I think Michael Bream beat us to the punch on that one because he had some sort of battery swap system with skateboard wheels. But yeah, that makes it so much easier to pull that battery out. But also, like I've been worried about, makes it easier to drop it. So got to have the choreography and the practice to make sure no one gets hurt.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you finished this race around the same number of laps as before, or did you guys end up beating it despite the aerodynamics of a brick?
Yeah. So with I think it was 9.5 hours less of race time, we did another 10 miles, did or something like that. Did 711 miles, would beat the record again.
Yep.
Wow.
Which was like totally unexpected, right? Going into a race that's 9.5 hours shorter, that was just not really in our thoughts. And then, as we got further and further on the race, we're like, actually, we're on pace. We might be able to do this. So it was awesome to, re-break our record with a shorter distance. And now we're just that much more excited to get back out for the full 24 and see how far we can make it.
And when's that next race for you guys?
Yeah. So our next race is end of May, and it's actually going to be at Thunder Hill. Lemons is doing a 25:01 hours race. So we're gonna have an extra hour and 1 minute to try and go a little bit further. I think the goal for this time will be 1,000 miles. So we'll see. Hopefully, I'm not jinxing it.
Yeah,
But,
knock on wood.
yep.
Well,
I guess.
I'm going to be
Oh,
cheering you guys on.
sorry, we're not gonna be the only EV team there as well.
Is
So
that so?
yeah, there's a Chevy Bolt going, and the community is pretty small. We talk to them all the time, and if we didn't show up, they would actually beat our record by 100 miles. So the race is actually going to be on this time to defend our record.
Yeah. So with their pace in that EV Bolt, they should be able to beat our existing 711-mile record, and then we'll see if we can try to stay even with them or beat their record. Like we said, we're going for 1,000 miles, but it's anyone's race.
Well, that's interesting. Is this the same Bolt team that had the record that was like 400 and something miles?
Yeah.
What have are they doing battery swaps, or are they just charging the car in between? Like, I don't know if they told you, but the Bolt is more of a street car, just plug it in at the fast charger and go. They just don't charge very fast
Yeah. I
compared
mean,
to
when
like
Tyler
a
and I
Tesla.
Yeah, when Tyler and I said it's a small community, right? It's he drove our car, we've both driven his car. So we've we know each
Nice.
other's well. I know they've done some aero improvements. They've also figured out a lot more on the driving style, and they've put a lot of effort into better data logging, so they can really optimize their driving and try to
Interesting.
stretch out that battery as much as possible. And Thunderhill has chargers at the track, so they should be able to charge faster than some of the other tracks, so they actually have to leave the track to go
Right.
charge. So yeah, I think they're hoping to get a lot more distance out of this race too.
Amazing. So you guys as a team, what would you say is your superpower? What do you do better than all of the other EV teams, or maybe even some of the ICE teams out there that don't have to worry about all of these things?
Overthink everything. uh, Honestly, I think it just comes down to our ability to be scrappy, right? When things go wrong with the track, we can turn around, continue to be safe, and keep the car going.
Yeah.
And that also follows for our design. Like this is still a Lemons car. It's not $500, but we do try to keep things lemonsy. Like we're using conveyor belt for some of our aero stuff. Uh, our rollers are actually recycled conveyor rollers, like things like that. It's still a very scrappy lemonsy car.
Do you guys still have anyone come up to you and say with all the conviction in the world, well, it's still a Datsun? Do they give you a hard time about it, or are they all pretty impressed?
Honestly, going into that first race, I expected some sort of hate. Never had any hate from anyone at Lemons. It's only been positive. Like that's one of the greatest things about this series. Everyone's there to have a good time. No one's there to compete against you. It's everyone competing against the track.
I love that. So I guess if you could recruit one fictional additional team member, who would it be?
Another driver that
Yes.
can do engineering
Or
work.
it could be one of your 20 support team too.
Honestly, we have a pretty stacked team, and at this point, I would welcome anyone who wants to get into EV conversions and especially EV motorsports, because this is this is very much in its infancy. Like there's a lot of room to grow. There's a lot of potential for not just car guys, but nerds, people who aren't into cars but are into EVs, into the data. There's going to be a lot of interest in my mind. So
it's nice to be at the front end of something exciting. And for those listening to the podcast, they've heard me say this a million times that we're kind of at the beginning of something that's going to be great, and it is already great. And in years from now, people are going to be looking back at this as being one of those car eras where everything was fresh and exciting and innovation was high, kind of like how we look back at the 90s or the 60s of these eras that were really important. And so I really am enjoying this kind of being grounded in that right now as it's happening. It's kind of pretty amazing. Is there any like obscure engineering decisions that you guys have made on this truck that at at the time was just trying to solve a problem, but ended up paying off big time?
specifically the battery swap setup we have,
Yeah.
like Nick mentioned before, we our big goal for safety was making these battery packs inherently safe, whether they're in the truck or not. And no one we found had a BMS or done a swappable battery pack that didn't have high voltage leads coming out of the pack when not installed. So that for us, having it set up so that once you unplug that battery or you hit the e-stop or anything goes wrong, it just kills the contactors and the battery is safe. It's a big deal. Uh, that's, I mean, Lemons themselves wants to see stuff like that going forward, right? Like it's important from a safety standpoint because it's just going to take one person getting hurt before things go wrong.
That makes good sense. And it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, and so a lot of our kind of decisions, both on the electrical setup and on the mechanical setup, was like trying to think through, okay, if I'm tired and delirious after getting out of the car, driving at 2 a.m, most of the way into a 24-hour race, can I mess this up? And trying to make it so you can't.
That sounds like most every one of my days just trying to idiot proof my life because I am the idiot. So, what next do you guys see on your path after Thunderhill? What's the trajectory that people can start watching you guys for? What's your motorsport dream?
Yeah, so I guess the first one, still going to keep racing the Datsun. We still want to try and go for a win.
Yeah,
But after that, I know SCCA and NASA, they're starting to come out with some rules. We're debating about making an autocross build, just trying to showcase what EV conversions can do in that area. Uh, the SCTA, who runs Bonneville Speed Week, they just changed their rule sets. There's now EV classes. And that's actually why we might not be at state of charge, because if we show up with a class eligible car, we could take a record this year. So
ooh,
that's on our radar. And then for me personally, I've always wanted to build a Pikes Peak climb car. Uh, Grew up in the Springs, so I don't know, just looking back at all the greats like Reese Millen or Master Tajima racing up the hill, it'd be great to put something up there that's electric. So
and you guys are kind of in the neighborhood too, so that makes it
yeah,
even that much more tempting.
yep.
I love all of that. I spent 2 years ago, I did quite a few track days with NASA in Southern California, the SoCal NASA, and uh, there was quite a few Teslas that would run. I mean, relatively quite a few, um, and um, and I don't think there was a single other EV other than a Tesla, which I was disappointed. I wanted to see the Mustang Mach-E's or any of the other, even Bolts. Like you could do a HPDE, no problem. It's a 20-minute session. I know that in NASA NorCal, there's also EVs that are running in their HPDE classes and like time attack. I have yet to see a single EV conversion though in any of those. And if you guys are running over an hour and a half or about an hour and a half, you could absolutely do one of those 20-minute sessions. And I think that that would be really cool to see as well. Well, thank you guys. Is there anything else you want to say? Any departing words of wisdom before we wrap up and leave people with the excitement knowing that in just a little over a month, you guys will be at the racetrack again?
I mean, I would just want to mention that, yeah, we'll be racing in a month, and we'll also be doing the 2 Colorado 24-hour lemons races this year. So we'll be, yeah, doing 3 races this summer. We figured out a live streaming setup in the car. So we'll be live streaming the whole thing on our YouTube channel. So you can watch the driving shenanigans and the battery swap shenanigans
Fantastic.
live.
And I will have all of that, all of your links on this episode. So people click and scroll down and give them a follow so that you get notified when they're doing this stuff.
Awesome. I don't have any words of wisdom, Dan, but it does sound like we need to get you in the car. If you're going to be at Thunder Hill.
I'll take you guys up at it. At least a joyride. I don't want to mess up your chance of getting that 1,000-mile record here.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Lemons is for anyone, including rookies. So see if we can't convince you.
Well, with that, I thank you guys so much for your time. This has been a highlight of my day, and I look forward to talking to you more soon and following along with your journey. Thank you all.
Chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.